I'm here today with Arun from Microsoft.
Hello.
And Yann Larrivé from the organizer of the Confoo conference. And we're here today to talk about FTW and Make Web Not War, two Microsoft initiative, right?
Yes. So Make Web Not War is our open source conference about sort of cross-platform development that's actually happening in Montreal this year on May 27th. And actually, PHP Quebec is a sponsor of Make Web Not War, and so is Impress CMS. And it's because it's about open source development that can happen on Windows IIS as well as Windows Azure platform. And so we're going to talk about topics ranging around different types of open source development and how those platforms are become a lot more interoperable for PHP development.
And FTW stands for?
FTW stands for the win for the web. And it's basically a competition that we have for finding PHP applications on Windows and IIS. So basically deploying PHP apps on Windows and IIS or deploying it on Windows Azure.
And what was the interest of PHP Quebec to sponsor that?
Well, we need to support the development of PHP on every platform. And I know, like, usually typical PHP developers often work on Windows and then put their applications on the Linux server. But we also need to integrate with other technologies, and I think IIS and SQL Server are just two other products that we need to deal with the web of today. So.
And why do you think that by default most developers seems to be developing on Windows but deploying on Linux? Why do you think that?
I think it's deploying on Linux is something that a lot of infrastructure that they're working on is just sort of the norm. When they think of PHP on Windows, like deploying on Windows, they don't think of it as a very easy path, or they think that it's just normal to make sure that there's a Linux box in it and then deploying.
It's just natural to do it on Linux.
Almost, yeah, that's exactly what it is. But the reality is you can actually deploy it on Windows. So then, if you're working with customers that are on a Windows environment, you wouldn't need to, go in and reinvent the wheel per se, but have things just deployable off of those Windows and IIS servers.
Now, why should we deploy on Windows? What are the benefits of doing that?
Well, deploying on Windows kind of gives you the flexibility to be able to also deploy things that use a .NET architecture. So it's basically the idea that it's an open platform that allows different types of applications to be deployable on Windows. So it's sort of a way that makes it easier to make your application off of there so it can work with the environment that's already existent for a specific customer.
Are there any performance benefit of running a PHP application on Windows?
So right now, running PHP on Windows, I would have to say, is on par with running PHP applications on Linux. Now, to say this maybe 4 years ago wouldn't really be accurate, but a lot of hard work was put in through the Open Source Technology Lab at Microsoft to ensure that PHP is treated like a first-class citizen on Windows. And then, we have Iron Ruby and Iron Python, which is also built into the Visual Studio sort of framework to ensure that they work as well on Windows. So with Windows, you can have the options of using .NET, using PHP, using Ruby, and using Python.
And if we're talking about big CMS player, like we have Joomla, WordPress, and Drupal, are they all running smoothly on Windows?
Right now, yes.
Okay.
So actually, Joomla was recently added to our web platform installer, so it's sort of the one-click web app gallery that's on IIS 7. And one of our hopes is to get Impress CMS on
and we will.
The web app gallery, as well as TikiWiki.
Yep.
But it's basically helping these prominent CMSs be easily deployable by people who do have IIS boxes, and gives them those tools, those open source tools that are available on Linux, available to them as well.
And Jan, have you been developing or deploying on Windows?
I mean, I've been working on Windows boxes. Personally, I deploy my stuff on Linux, but I know that the web platform installer is just great. It just has like those really easy applications to install, and it's really easy to deploy your apps with it. So I think that's one of the great features that Microsoft offers.
Can I ask a question?
You can, Christian.
Okay, I left the camera. I have a question. You said that Windows is an open platform.
Yeah.
And you said that you can install open source product on Windows.
Yes.
But why cannot you install .NET on Linux? This is my question.
Oh, that's a good question.
That's a great question. Thank you, Christian.
Deploying .NET on Linux, I think it all comes down to the way .NET was actually created. I mean, I can't say .NET itself is open source. .NET itself, I mean, ASP.NET MVC is open source.
Okay.
But again, it's open source on Windows because I guess the way .NET was created, it was sort of created for the .NET environment.
Yeah.
The thing is .NET is changing. It's not what it was when it first came out. So I think the motto of Microsoft is that open source is a really good opportunity for the company. So I don't know what's going to happen with regards to how .NET is now, but who's to say?
So open source is no more a threat. It's not a competitor. It's an opportunity.
I don't think I could really comment on what. I mean, I have to say, yeah, things were probably said in the past, but as it stands today, open source is definitely an opportunity for Microsoft.
And talking about a little bit about the web PI, Jan talked about that earlier.
Yeah.
How typically does it work? Like, for example, if you're installing WordPress, you need to put some files, you need to create a database, you need to set up a few things. How does WebPI does that?
So how WebPI actually does that is that it allows you to install the different layers with the actual application, so you can sort of select it. So it would be WordPress, and it uses MySQL as a database. So you'd actually select MySQL, and it would install MySQL on your IIS server. So that way, when it deploys, it feels like a one-click install. But you're getting the entire stack that the application requires onto the machine.
And will we actually run like the WordPress installer, or is it that all done by the WebPI?
It's actually all done by the WebPI.
So nothing to do, one click and it works.
One click and your WordPress blog should be
awesome.
ready.
It works with Drupal, WordPress.
Drupal, so Acquia, Drupal, WordPress, Joomla, and a few others like Moodle.
And soon TikiWiki and Impression.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, so WTF, it's a competition.
FTW.
FTW. I was close.
So FTW, we ran this competition, started last year.
Yep.
Basically, we knew PHP on Windows is now a better story. Thing is no one really knows about it, and no one is really incented to try it out. The competition was designed to promote people to try out, Windows and IIS using PHP. What we uncovered was actually a nice, vast amount of developers that have the skill sets to make great PHP applications, and they can make it work on a Windows and IIS box. Not too difficult of a manner because of the improvements done with PHP. So we uncovered that the finalist was a student from the University of British Columbia called Carson Lamb, and he made an application called TransitDB that used open data in the city of Vancouver to show the different bus stops and the location of where you are from those bus stops using PHP, using IIS, using MS SQL Server on a Windows box. And he used Google Maps for the actual application. But it was really cool. I mean, he ended up winning the competition, but he brought to us attention the importance of open data. And I mean, actually this year, open data is one of the subcategories for the competition. Now, the second place winner for the competition last year actually was a Montreal native, Dak Chartrand. And he had a content management system called Suxor that he was able to make deployable on Windows and IIS. So right now we're still working with Dak Chartrand to get it onto the web platform installer, and we're actually hoping to make it a project as part of the Make Web Not War conference. But the competition showed us that, encouraging PHP development on Windows is really important, and where you can actually uncover really, really cool apps. So the focus is finding the best apps, but looking for open source apps specifically.
Great. We need to conclude. What are the dates for those events?
Okay, so the competition closes May 10th,
Okay.
and the actual conference, Make Web Not War, is on May 27th.
Great. Thank you, Arun. Thank you, guys.